Welcome to Test Troop, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing. Till now, we were running the request one by one. In this tutorial, we will understand different way to run the collections in Postman. The running the entire collection, not the request by request. Here, we will explore the different ways to run the collections in Postman, making your API testing more effective and efficient. We will start running the collections in Postman manually. Then we will understand what is the meaning of scheduled runs. Then I will also touch upon how to run the entire collection without any manual intervention, that is automatically. While explaining how to run the entire collections automatically, I will introduce why we need this and a little bit of overview of the CI/CD concepts and also the pipelines. The whole the process of running the API test without any manual intervention can be done using a tool called Newman. So I will tell how to install the Newman into your environment. Then different ways of running the API tests in the Newman, either using the API key, URL, or the files. Finally, I will touch upon how to generate very good HTML, detailed HTML and JUnit reports. In case any of your request uses any environment configuration like dev or test environment or the production environment, then I'll also explain how to run these collections automatically using Newman by introducing the environment configuration. Let us go to Postman and understand what are the different ways that we can run the collections. To do this, we have to go at the collection level and click on these three dots. Then there is an item called run collection. And if you see here, it provides the three different ways of running your collection, either a run manually or the scheduled runs, or automate the runs via the command line interface. So let's start with run manually. So while clicking the run user management API test this button, Postman will start executing all the tests, all the collection tests. Here, right, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 requests. It executes all the tests that are associated with these 5 requests. So if you see here, you can also see there is something called a run order, which will be telling the order in which the requests are getting executed. This will be the same order in which the requests are being created. If you want to change an order, you can basically um, drag and I think it is, yeah, pull down. I wanted to execute post at the down at the almost at the end, so I can move these requests. I can rearrange basically these requests in an order in which I want to execute this particular test, right? Now let us click on run the user management test. As tests are basically got executed, and you see there are 8 tests that are being executed and all of them are basically passed, right? Also see here uh, about the summary of your test. It says that it uses manual runner, it uses the environment as production, it uses single iteration, and this is how much time it took to the test to execute, and there are 8 tests that are executed and average response time is 59 milliseconds. So it can also be used for performance testing of your APIs. So here it basically lists the entire test summary, and if you want more information about what has happened in the test, you can basically go and check here. But I don't see any response that is been coming. That is because there are certain configuration uh, I need to click while running the test. So let us go back, and again let us go back and run collection. And if you see here, there are two important parameters. The one is the persist response of a session. So if I check this on, then during the execution, whatever the response that we get, right, it will be shown. Try to schedule a run. The execution is done again, and if I click on here particular request, you see I can see all the details here, right? So this is by clicking that, by checking that particular configuration button. Okay, that is one of the important concept you need to remember while running your tests. So far what we learned is how to execute the tests manually, right? Manual runs, and then where to see the results, run result, where to see the summary, and how to see the passed and failed test, and how to go to each and every request and check their responses, what is happening, and also the order in which the tests are being executed. And one thing you need to remember, since we are using the free license, there is a limit on how many times you can execute the entire collection the manually. So if I go to this particular tab, it says that I can execute only 25 times, right? So I already executed 13 times. So the total number of times I can execute this particular collection manually is 25 times. When you run the test again and again, and if it crosses the limit of 25, then it stops running your test. So please make sure that the free trial only offers you the 25 manual runs. Let's explore how to run the Postman collection using scheduled run. Click on run collection, select this scheduled run item, give a name, and select the time when you want to run the test. Given, let us say 4 p.m. Give an environment, which environment it should use. Let us use the production environment, and then basically schedule this run. So this basically what it will do, every day, if you see, every day at 4 p.m. it will execute the test. But where this test will be executed? This test will not be executed from your computer. The test will be executed from the Postman cloud. So since it is executed from the Postman cloud, only the APIs that are public, that is publicly available API. For if you see the Trello API, request response API, these are all the publicly available API. You can go Google and search them. But if you have an APIs which are very specific to your organization, in such cases you cannot run them using the scheduled runner. So you have to keep this in mind. Now click button schedule run. So you can see that I have an schedule user, which is my test name, which is scheduled at 4 p.m. to run. So I can also manually run by clicking this button. Here, when I click on this button, it will not run on my, basically it will not run on my machine desktop, but it will run on the cloud as it said here. Let us go and run it. You see the 3 tests are passed and some of them are failed. Let us see why it is failed. We will do an analysis. But before that, so since this test is being scheduled at the to run it in a Postman cloud, how do we find this basically? How do we, or where do we find this? Okay. In order to see a scheduled runs, you have to go at the collection level, edit the collection, then go to the runs. This basically shows all the runs, including the scheduled runs, the manual runs, and the runs that are run by the Postman CLI, that is called as an automatic run, right? So for the scheduled run, there is a special tab called schedule. Click on this. It basically shows the result of the test that we run, right? So click on this or view. It takes you to, yeah, it basically takes you into this screen. If you see, This is the one that I ran manually at 357. Then I waited till this particular run to be happening automatically. So, but you see some of the test runs are failed. It says that it is unhealthy. But yeah, so this is where you basically you can find the test runs. Now let us check why these tests are failing. Okay, let us try to debug them and let us go to the failed test. And if you see, verify the details of the user ID. If I click on this, I am not getting any. Yeah, I am basically not getting any kind of logs. Let us go to console logs. Yeah, it says that failed to verify the details of the user ID, unexpected. So there is something that we are doing in this test. I think we are trying to compare something. Let us go to this particular test. Let us go to this particular test with an ID to get user right. So if you see here, if I go to this particular test, I am trying to compare it is with an user ID. So one of the important thing that we have to see here is when the collections are run, other than the manual, when the collections are run outside of your environment, either maybe it is in cloud or using command line interface or an automated runs, always it picks up the variable from the initial value side. If you go here basically, and if you edit the collection, we are basically using certain variables here, right? But we have the values for the current value. The current values are used when you try to run them as a single or a collection using a manual run, right? So then these current values are used. For all the other runs, basically the initial values are used. So what you have to do, you have to copy paste these values back into the initial value. There is another way of doing it. I think that is using the uh, this particular using this particular item. If I keep persist all, then you see all the data will be copied from the current value to the initial value. Let us save this. And if I remember, in one of my tests, I think I am also using the environment variable. This is also the same case in the environment as well. So I have to go to an environment variable and I will try to see this. Click on this. You see here also the initial value is missing. That is why all the tests are all the tests wherever the initial values are missing, it is failing. Here also I can do the persist all, then I do a save, then I have both the initial value and the current value. Now I will go back and try to run this test. What I can do is I can come here, I can go to edit, I can go to run, I can go to schedule, I can open this my test and I can again run it here, right? You see now all the tests are now passed, right? All the tests are now passed. That is only because of the variables these tests were failing, and when we copied the current value back into the initial value, the test started passing. So the important concept while running the test in a cloud or using an automated way, make sure that whatever the variable that you are using, it should have an initial value. Okay, so you'll have to copy the current value back into the initial value and then you have to execute it. It may be using a scheduled runner or maybe the automatic run. Hope you understood how the scheduled run works. Now let us see how to run the APIs in an automated way without any manual intervention. Before we deep dive into this section, it is better to understand why do we need to run an APIs in an automated way or without any manual interventions. I am going to introduce the concept of CI/CD that basically explains why do we need to run a test in an unintended fashion or in an automated way. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment. it is a practice used in software development to automate the process of building the application or building the software, testing the software, and deploying the software into the different environments. In a normal development process, software development process, the developers work who are working on a new enhancement or an bug fixes, they do their work in a private branch. Once they see that their the work they have done is works fine, then they regularly merge their code or changes into a repository which is shared across the multiple developers. Each time the new code is added or merged into this shared repository or a shared branch, and automated tests are run to make sure that the new changes do not break anything. This ensures that the code is always in an healthy state. The one point to highlight here is an automated test, right? So if you have developed, if the developer is working on developing some kind of an API and you have developed a test to automate these APIs, in that case you need to run this test in an unintended fashion. When the developer checks in his code, this test should be run in an unintended way without any manual intervention. That is why automatic running of the testing is very important. Let's understand what is continuous delivery. After the code passes all the tests, it is automatically packaged and ready for release. See, when the software development is done, then the tests are passed. Now it is kind of an in a shippable format. Then what they do, they package the entire software along with all the needed dependencies. For example, uh, in order to, for example, let us take an example of writing and selenium test. For writing and selenium test, what you need a java, right? Java or an jdk, upon which you need to have a selenium libraries. So these are all the dependencies to automate a test. Similarly, for any kind of software development, there is a lot of dependencies that are involved, dependent components that are involved. It may be a kind of an libraries, it can be in jar, or it can be in Java runtime environment and things like that, right? So all those things are packaged basically into a package and make it ready for release. This means that application can be deployed into production at any time with the manual intervention. Continuous deployment is a process. This takes one step further. Once the code passes all the tests, it is automatically deployed into a live or an production environment. Okay, so it is so that the as soon as the different developers who are working on to develop a piece of software, they commit their changes. The changes are once the for any commits, the automated tests are run, and when everybody's code get merged, then a continuous regression tests are run in an unintended fashion. Once all these tests are basically passed, then the software is packaged, and automatically it can be deployed into a production environment without any human intervention. This is called as continuous deployment. Okay, basically the organizations use pipelines to achieve this continuous integration, continuous delivery, or a continuous deployment. Some of the popular CI/CD tools that the industries use are the Azure DevOps, it may be the GitLab or GitHub, or the TeamCity, etc. Right? Jenkins, the Bamboo, to name the few of them. Right? To name a few. So why the CI/CD is important? CI/CD helps the team to release updates more frequently, catch the bugs earlier, and ensure higher quality software with less effort. It creates a faster and more reliable workflow from the development to the production. This concept is not at all related to the API testing, but I wanted to introduce CI/CD concept here in order to understand the importance of automated tests. Okay, so One thing I want to highlight is the execution of an automated test. So it is during the continuous integration clearly told that whenever the developer commits his changes into the shared repository, then the automated tests are executed to make sure that the new changes don't break anything. But where exactly these automated tests are executed? These are not executed on your local machine or an the desktop where you have developed these tests. And let us take an example where the developer is working on creating a new API or enhancing an API, and you have already created a series of tests to automate them. Okay, by installing a Postman, by calling the request in a sequence, all those things that what I explained in my earlier videos. Now, uh, now he basically merges his changes and tests are get automatically gets triggered. Where exactly these tests are run? These tests are not run in your desktop where you have developed these tests, but there is a dedicated resource pool that is assigned, that is attached to this continuous integration pipeline to run these automated tests. Okay, in most of these machines are either a Docker images or they may be an virtual machines, and uh, in 99% of the time you cannot go and install the software which has an graphical user interfaces and execute the test. In such cases, basically the command line interfaces helps us to run these kind of tests, run this kind of a test in an automated fashion. That is what we are going to learn next, how to run the Postman collection in an automated way without any manual intervention. Newman is a command line tool to run the Postman collections. So in order to run the Postman collections automatically, we are using a Newman as a tool, which is an command line tool. It is built on node.js. So if you want to install this Newman command line tool, first you need to install the node.js. So basically you can go to this particular resource and try to find the installable for node.js, and then you can install it on your machine. It can be on Linux machine, or it can be on Mac machine, or it can be on your Windows machine. This was the link that I was showing in my presentation. So you can go to the downloads and then you can select the operating system on which you are going to install it, right? So if you see, it supports Windows, Mac OS and Linux, and you can select this LTS version and download it and install. It is pretty simple to install Node.js. I have already installed Node.js. So in order to check uh, whether the Node.js is installed properly, you will have to go to the command prompt. Just type cmd, the command line prompt appears. Then you can check np npm hyphen hyphen version, and it basically gives the version of the uh, packet manager what I am having, right? To check if the node.js is installed properly, you have to go to the command prompt, then type node hyphen hyphen version. You see I have version 18.16.1, which is the older version compared to this. Doesn't matter, we can still use this version. Okay, and upon which now we have to install uh, the Postman CLI, that is called as a Newman here, and there is a GitHub documentation about this particular command line tool. To it says that Newman, the CLI companion for Postman, Newman is a command line collection to run the Postman collections. Okay, so let's go to the getting started section, and it's basically says how to install the install this particular package. To install this on Windows, let us copy this command. Let us go to our command prompt and type this. You see now it is installed correctly, right? So now the Newman tool is installed correctly. Let us check what is the version of the Newman that is installed. Newman hyphen version. It is a 6.2 version. So this is how we basically install the Newman command line tool. We can run the Postman collection with Newman in a three different way, using API keys via URL and exporting the entire collection as a JSON file and then executing it. So we will go one by one and try to understand how to do this. Running the Postman collection via the API key. So for this you need to basically to get an API key for this collection. So this can be done via going at the collection level and then click at the share, and then here there is something called via API, and then you can generate. If you are using it for a first time, it will ask you to generate a key. So I already have a key. So here there will be a small box telling generate a key. For example, let us go to the Trello API and see via the API, right? So see, for this particular collection, I did not generate a key. So you can generate a key via clicking this generate key. So I have done this step already for the user management API. So that is why it already generated a key. I copy this key and then I come to the command prompt and use the command Newman, then run. Newman run command. If you also go to the documentation, it also say you can also go through the documentation of Newman, that is a GitHub documentation, see how to run the collection. This is generally done by Newman run followed by the API key. If you see, it is executing all my tests totally. You might have seen I have 8 tests with the 5 requests, and out of which 2 are failed. And you can also see a reason why it is failed. Basically, in one of the request I am using the base URL environment, but while running I am not using the environment. I am just running the via the API key, just running the collection without any environment variable. That is why it is saying it is not found. I will later point in time I will also show you how to include an environment while running the um, while running the collection automatically, right? So I will also show that. So this is how the report looks like, and if you see, it basically shows what are the tests, what are the requests that are executing, and it also prints console.log whatever the statement that you have put. It also does the printing, and then it shows the entire execution summary here. So how many iterations it has done, how many requests that you are executed, and how many of them passed, how many test scripts were there, and how many assertions that you have put, how many passed and how not. It basically gives a detailed report including the time that it takes for the complete execution. This is how we can execute the entire collection using the API key. Running the API collection via the URL. Okay, for this basically we need certain parameters to construct a kind of an URL. So I have created a collection for this, and get collection detail is one of them, and this is an API basically endpoint URL that we need to construct an URL, right? This is an endpoint URL basically we need for constructing a constructing the URL. Okay, so this consisting of the base URL, which is api.postman.com, then the collections and the collection ID, and then the API key. So each collection has got its own collection ID. So how do you get a collection ID? Then you have to go to the collection level. Then once you go into the collection level, then there is a small information icon that you get here. When you click here, then you get a collection ID. Just copy and collection ID here and come back to this particular request and substitute this ID with this value, right? So yeah, this is how you get a collection ID. Along with that, you also need an API key. Okay, and for the Postman, there is a way that how we can generate an API key. This is basically done by going to the manage accounts, then settings. This brings basically an it brings out an web page, something like this, where you can see your details, and then there is something called an API key. Click on this API key and then click here to generate an API key, and you can give a name. This is for you can give it as Newman execution. Then you can get a generate key. Then you can basically copy this key, and then you can go to Postman and give this. Under this you can give the API key, right? You can give the value here, right? Now save this and try to execute. See, this is basically executed, right? So this is successful. Now you can go to the console log, just copy this request. I just copy, come to the command line, then again here the same command, Newman run, followed by this command, right? You see, it executed the collection. Again you see there are two errors. This is basically expected because we are using an environment variable. So how to get over this? How to basically introduce an environment variable? This can be done via using another parameter passing to the Newman run. The parameter name is -e, include the environment. But in order to basically include this environment, you need to do a little bit of setup, how the same way how we did it for get collection. So you'll have to get an URL for that, and the URL here is environment with an ID and key. Since you are using a production environment, let us go to the production environment, and again try to get an ID of this. Clicking here, this is basically an ID, and come back to the get environment request and substitute where I have already given this ID here, but again I need an API key, and you can copy this value, same API key, you can come here and you can provide this value, right? Then save this request, execute this request, and this is the URL for this is an URL for the environments, right? Copy this. Now come to the command line, execute the same command. This is the URL of collection, and again -e environment, -e means environment. Give the URL of the environment as well, right? You see, all our tests are passed. Okay, so this is how basically we can execute the API collection via the URL, including the environment URL as well. Hope you understood this. Now let us understand how to execute the collection by exporting the collection as a file, as into local file, right? So for this, what we need to do is we have to basically export. Okay, we basically export the collection. Then click on export button here. Yeah, so you can select a location where do you want to export it. I have exported basically into my download folder. Let us go to my download folder, and this is the collection. Basically collections are exported into a JSON file. Now in order to execute this, I will close this command prompt. I have to come to this location and just type a command. This will basically bring out a command line, and you see the location is C user, my name, and downloads. This is the folder where exactly it is. Okay, now if I try to list the files, see, you see I have a folder called directory called old, then I have a file, this particular file. So now let us try Newman run and this particular file. Yeah, let us execute this. The tests are executed. Again the same result. The two test cases are failed here. That is because we have not executed the entire collection with the environment variable. In order to do so, we have to go to again Postman and go to the environment section. Then here also you can here you can export the environment as well, but make sure that all your execution that you do in an automated way always execute on the initial value. It will not execute on the current value. So in order um, to perform your execution properly, the field has to be filled in both at the environment variable level and also at the um, collection variable level, right? So if I go and edit here, you go to the variable, you see this field, this initial value has to be filled. Right, now let us go back to the our environment variable. Let's come here and do an export. This again exported into a JSON file. It will be exported in the same location, and then I can execute the same command with the minus E option. Then I can give prod. This is our environment collection, basically environment the file. So let's execute this. You see it executed beautifully, right? So without any error. This is how we basically execute the Postman collection via the local file using Newman. In all the three cases where we executed the collection via the API or maybe the URL or via the local file, you see some basic reports, right? But you can enhance the report by using another another add-in or another plugin. Let us see how to use it. One of the commonly used plugin for HTML reporting is the Newman reporter HTML etc. HTML extra. So there are several plugins that are available to provide a detailed HTML report. So I am going to use this particular the plugin, which is called as Newman reporter HTML etc. Sorry, HTML extra. So let us see how to work with that. And first you need to install this particular the package via the npm. Let us do that. Let's go to the command line, do it. The installation is complete. Let us go to the documentation and its usage. It says, so Newman run this particular JSON, then you will have to give -r as a report, right? Report path. Sorry, and you can see the documentation. You can specify the -r to generate an HTML report, but using the hyphen reporter, this particular parameter, you can also uh, provide a location where you want to basically generate a report. So let us directly use this -r option and see what happens. What I will do is I will go to my previous command where I am running my collection along with the environment. Then I will use -r option, right? You see now the execution happens silently. It is not printing anything with us, right? Anything to the console, but it basically generates a report. Let's go and check the folder. So from the folder where you executed, right? We have executed from the download folder. So the report is also getting generated in the download folder. It generates basically an folder called Newman, under which you see an yeah. So there is an HTML file. When you open, this is how basically it looks like. It says it also gives a lot of summary. For example, total number of requests, how many tests that are passed, how many tests that are failed, and you can go into the past test and you can see what has happened, and basically it gives what we executed, what is the request that I executed. This is the request that we sent, and this is a request that we have sent, right? This is a request, the request. This is a request that we executed, and what are the response value that we got? What is the response header that we got? All the details are marked here, right? So this is, if you go to this here, and you can basically expand and close it off. And for the second request, this also gives the complete information. It also gives the what kind of status code it has got, and how much time it took to execute. This is basically a detailed report that it gives. Very good report that helps you to helps you to debug the test very easily, right? This gives a lot of information. But only thing what we are missing here is we don't see what is happening, because everything happens very silently. So in order to bring the execution summary into console, so you can also, what you can do basically is you can give two parameters here. One is called as a CLI. CLI is our command line interface, that is a console where to print. Another one is into HTML. You see, it also gives a summary into your console. Along with that, it also generates an HTML report. So every time when you execute, a new report will be generated appending the latest timestamps. I think this is the latest one, right? This is the latest one. So this is how basically it generates a beautiful HTML report. Most of the CI/CD and pipeline tools supports the JUnit reporting, okay, using which they can generate a very beautiful graph showing the test summary, telling how many test cases are that are passed and how many test cases are failed. For this purpose, they use the JUnit reports. So the Newman by default provides this facility. You need not have to install any new package or any new plugin for that. You can directly go to the reporting section and you can go to the JSON report. Sorry, you can go to the you have to go to the JUnit reporter. So JUnit reporter is a built-in functionality within the Newman package itself, and it basically generates an XML report. How to generate that? It is a simple command. You can, instead of here HTML extra, you can just give JUnit, and you can go to folder. You see it has generated an HTML report. Let us open this, and this is the format how it looks like. This will be easily understandable by the command line pipeline tools like GitLab or an Azure DevOps, and using which they generate a very nice pie chart kind of thing that gives the test summary, how many test cases passed and how many test cases failed, giving the test coverage as well. This is how basically we can use the reporting plugin to generate a detailed HTML and XML report. That brings to the end of this session. Hope you enjoyed learning with me. In this video, we explore different ways to run Postman collections, starting with the manual, then scheduled runs. And I also introduce a concept of CI/CD, bringing the importance of automated testing, and why basically we need to run the test in an unintended fashion or without any manual intervention. This video also covered using the Newman CLI tool to run the Postman tests automatically, demonstrating the various methods such as using an API key, URL, and file. Additionally, we looked at how to generate a detailed HTML and JUnit reports with Newman. If you find this video helpful, please support the channel by subscribing. All the resources I used for this video is given in the description section. Thank you for watching.